Hello, I'm Nevine at Essential Energies. I just want to tell you a little bit about how to get the best out of a clairvoyant reading or a psychic reading. I've been reading for 20 odd years, probably more now, and I guess sometimes I am reminded that for someone who may be approaching their first reading, seeking guidance, or perhaps someone who has been to various readers, it isn't always that obvious, because every reader or psychic or intuitive can work differently. Also, what occurs is that depending on the interaction between the reader and the person who's turned up, different readings can actually turn out quite differently. But there are some fundamentals that are worth mentioning. So let's start with those, keeping in mind that what we're chatting about is how can you get the best out of a reading. So the first thing to be aware of is when you turn up, have an open mind, of course. Be as relaxed as you can possibly be, because the more relaxed you are, the more receptive you will be to the message. Also, it will mean that your questions, when you pose them, are going to be clearer. They're going to be more focused. Also, you're more likely to remember what's being said. A lot of people think that, they will take notes or take a recording or whatever, but so much of what a reader downloads is downloaded intuitively, and it's actually downloaded so often into your subconscious. The events that occur during a reading are far more than the words. So often there are internal shifts that occur in people that I see daily, that have nothing to do with the words that have been delivered. Remember that once we have read for you, what we've read is actually now the past at some level. You get to choose whether that is where you would like to go. So keep that point in mind. Nothing is set in stone. And if you are receptive to what's been offered to you, perhaps a worthwhile question is, if that's going to happen, how can I make sure that getting there is easy, effortless, and assured, as opposed to, moving on to the next topic too quickly. Let's step back a little bit, though, and look at what can make readings different under different circumstances. First of all, the reader can affect the reading a great deal, depending on the reader's level of awareness, consciousness. Some readers, because they're just starting out, they may believe that what they're reading is the only option available. They've worked so hard to get that particular image or wording or concept. They believe that that's all there is. However, as time goes on, a good reader and an experienced reader, when their ability to get messages becomes more accessible, they notice that they are often given a number of options. I know I do. I'm shown in most scenarios 3 or 4 options. The one that is most likely is the one that is presented first and often looks more obvious, more light-filled. And that is normally the one I will read. I will say to the person, this is the most likely set of occurrences heading your way because of the way that you are acting, your karmic requirements, etc. Now, of course, the most likely is not set in stone. Nothing is. So say the person then turns around and says, but I was hoping for better, or I was hoping for option C. How can I actually make that more likely to occur? Again, a good reader has an interactive interaction with the spiritual guidance that they're receiving. And depending on the level of that, whether they're working with a simple guide that is no more than a soul that has just crossed, or whether they're working with angelic resonance. If you're working with something that has more awareness, more consciousness, then their ability to help someone create the future they wish for is far greater. So a reader like that will be open to such a question and such a concept, and will normally respond with, well, if you would prefer option C, D or E, then these are the things you can do. So often, when someone will turn up the first time, they fall into the trap of trying to test the reader. It really can be a waste of time. Because if you're testing a reader, you're not getting your money's worth. You really should be finding out things that you don't know, not testing them on things you do know. That's kind of dumb. However, if you pursue that, some of us will actually pull out of the reading because our ethics does not allow for us to waste your money or your time, and certainly not ours. We sometimes have more work than we can cope with. Now, having accomplished the fact that you're not testing them, by all means, ask how to achieve the realities you're looking for, and be aware that a good reader has access to that information. Once you've asked the question, though, they will probably open a dialogue with you, and if we're working with angelic resonance, they will normally also download a healing frequency if the vibration that you are at cannot match the reality that you're wishing to attract. You see, so often it isn't that a reality is not meant for us. It's simply that we're not ready for it. We are simply not vibrating at the right frequency. Each and every one of us has a particular characteristic overriding soul frequency and aura frequency, and that needs to match the events we're trying to attract into our life. So the readers that are bringing in a more conscious awareness as they read, or those who are practiced healers, and a lot of us do combine both, will actually not just deliver words, they will deliver a resonance that will help you create the reality you're after. So remember to ask and to be open to receive. Do not block the message. The other thing to be aware of is that if a reader is not knowledgeable of the area that you're working with, they will sometimes need to ask you some questions, and perhaps wait a moment for their mind and yours to have a level of merging so that they can use the information, for example, that you have on medical science if we're answering a medical question and they don't have that level of knowledge. You see, when we receive guidance, Spirit is normally using what we have in our logical archive to put a composite together in the way of images, in the way of words, in the way of sensations, and sometimes even smell, to help us deliver the message to you. Sometimes we're getting it as words and we will just open our mouth and it will flow out. Sometimes we will get images and we will describe those as if we're describing a scene or a movie for you. Occasionally, what is occurring is that they're composing out of various elements we have stored within our logical files, something that we know nothing about. And we will stop and actually ask you for perhaps a little bit of tidying up because we've gone into an area we're unaware of. Personally, I read widely, I study widely, so that I can read, as I have for many years, not only things to do with medical science, not only to do with business, not only to do with stocks, not only to do with travel, not only to do with child rearing or marital issues or whatever. So I have a wide knowledge base to allow me to do that. But sometimes, we're working with someone for the first time and we are needing to compose it. And the terminology we use may not be the terminology you use, so we will check with you. And of course, if you're open to the dialogue, the reading you get is far superior.